Hi, and welcome to Dr. Bohné from the Cyberhuman Lab at the Department of Engineering, Cambridge University. Thank you very much for taking your time to talk to us today. And could you give us a little bit of a background about your work and where you've come to from?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for the invitation. I'm Thomas, and I'm the founder and head of the Cyber Human Lab at the Department of Engineering. And we focus on how we can use a variety of technologies to augment human abilities and improve human performance, primarily in industrial contexts.
Cool. That's amazing. So in terms of the work in the industrial context, how does digital education fit into the industrial context?
It's a big challenge for a lot of companies to train their employees. That relates to new employees, and that could be apprentices joining a company for the very first time and learning a trade or a certain job. But it's also true for literally all employees within an organization up until the age they're retiring. A lot of jobs require new skills that need to be learned. A lot of jobs require people to maybe change their skills and occupations throughout their career. So training and retraining are big challenges in industry. And an interesting question is, how can that be achieved at scale? And how can potentially training be measurably improved by using some of the wonderfully new technologies that are out there? And of course, as you know, and as I know, some of these technologies aren't actually that new, but they're interesting. And so one of the areas we have looked into is, how can we potentially use some of the virtual reality and augmented reality and mixed reality technologies that are available at consumer grade to potentially, in a remote and very digital fashion, to train people skills. And we have now done this a lot in experiments, in pilots, and we're quite fascinated by the opportunities some of these technologies seem to offer.
Yeah, that's amazing. So on the back of that, because that's obviously my little love area as well. Um, so how does that impact on the sort of new models and the future models of education that you might have to bring as the director of the Cyber Human Lab?
Well, I think while we can see some of the potential that these technologies offer, and that includes being able to train someone remotely, potentially allowing low-cost training, potentially allowing new forms of training, because it enables people to experience training sessions and environments that previously were either very expensive or maybe dangerous or completely technically unfeasible to do. So there's a lot of potential, I think, that's quite visible to educators and engineers out there. But a big question that remains from our point of view is what actually works and what doesn't work. And that in turn requires a lot of research, that requires a careful analysis of what are the effects of some of these technologies on people. How can some of the virtual environments that can be created with virtual technologies such as virtual reality or augmented reality, how can we design some of these environments, and do these changes in these virtual environments actually then result in improved learning outcomes and maybe even improved human performance in industry? And that is something we are quite fascinated by. And that is, I think, a big research gap that offers tremendously interesting opportunities for engineers, educators, psychologists, and a range of very interdisciplinary people to look into this.
Yeah, it's becoming more transdisciplinary, isn't it? Which is both a benefit and a challenge. Are there any other current challenges, or actually even like COVID is a challenge for a lot of people, it might actually end up being an opportunity. Are there any challenges in terms of your area of work apart from the research gaps that we have?
Well, I think you're absolutely right in that there are many challenges beyond the actual research. I think there are ethical dimensions to it, which is, I think, very interesting. And in fact, I'm quite actively exploring, in a sense, this area with some talented colleagues from philosophy and other areas. I think there are psychological and educational implications. I think that are interesting and important to be aware of. And I suppose there are also economic and societal ramifications. So if we have a model of more individual, maybe more remote education, that offers a lot of opportunities, but it may also give rise to new challenges, which are in part, at least, maybe unanticipated. And that's certainly something we as engineers who are trying to actively build the future need to be aware of and also consider in creating the future.
Okay, so with all of those things, so I introduced you to the centre in our previous conversation, so the Digital Education Futures Initiative. So how could the DEFI take this forward from your perspective? Like, what benefits could we bring to you? And is there anything that we should be doing to help the engineering field bring these new models of learning to the forefront and to the wider audience?
Mm-hmm. I would think that in classical Cambridge style, I think a lot can be learned by bringing together people from different disciplines. And I think we from engineering definitely realize that as engineers, we can do many interesting things with technologies. But if we don't understand some of the educational theories and lessons that have been learned over many years, if not decades, and also work together with colleagues from psychology who have a much deeper understanding of some of the maybe cognitive challenges and opportunities that arise, and together with maybe philosophers to think more deeply about the ethical issues. I think if we don't create this very interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary discourse, I think that would be a great shame if we didn't do that. And so conversely, if there was such an institute or initiative that can facilitate and bring together some of these different perspectives and help shape the future in education, I think that would be a tremendous asset to have, and it would be a very exciting thing to do.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bohné, for your time. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Pleasure.